What's good, people? What's good? What's good? What's good? Hey, man. Welcome to the Uncle Fred show. We're going to try to jump on here maybe one more time this week uh, before the big game on Thursday. So we're going to try to get on that. On today's show, we're going to talk about Deron Bland getting signed. We're going to give you some of the details on that deal. We're going to talk about that mysterious injury that Micah has, and we really not going to talk a whole lot about Micah because really that's a done deal. That's behind us. We really got a game to play in 2 days, but sometimes you gotta get closure. Sometimes if somebody was lying, they need to be brought out for lying, and if and so when you find out stuff, you need to need to be reported and stuff. So and then we're gonna get to we'll also on that we'll talk about the agent David Mulligetta. He was on first take today, and he had some interesting things to say. We'll probably listen to some of that, but then the big thing is that Cowboys play the Eagles on Thursday night, and we're gonna talk about some things of that nature. So anyway, but we'll get to that right now. Hang with your boy just for a few minutes. We're gonna get it done.
Two times on the beat, bitch.
Once again, welcome to the Uncle Fred show. We are just thankful to be here today, and we just want to uh, yeah, we're just thankful for another week that we're able. And I'm hoping everybody has had a good this camera back right there. Yeah, here we go. Hope everybody had a good Labor Day weekend. And maybe if you had to work, hope you got a chance to spend time with your family and all that kind of good stuff. That's all important stuff there. I know a lot of times we take those things for granted, but anytime you get to spend time with your friends and loved ones, man, take that opportunity because you never know when it's your last time on that. So again, like I said, welcome to the Uncle Fred show. All right, so real briefly, we know they didn't sign Micah. They let Michael, get traded. They traded him, and the Packers gave him a king's ransom and everything. And I know, maybe we didn't want to spend that kind of money, whatever. So, but we did find out too that in the aftermath of that, they signed Deron Bland to a contract, and let me see if I can show you that. Let's see here. Oh, shoot, come on now. I get to open a new window here. I want to be able to share the screen here, but it's not working with me here. Let's see here. All right. Well, shoot. Can we get it to share the screen here? But anyway, Deron Bland signed a 4-year, $92 million contract, as it says on paper. Really, it's like 4 years and 90 million, and there's about $2 million of incentives that's in there to make it. At the end of it, if he reaches some of those milestones, it'll be $92 million. And congratulations to Deron Bland. I think Deron Bland's a fine player. I think he's one of those players that we were looking at because when they was doing the schedule of like, okay, we got to sign Micah, we're gonna sign Tyler Smith, and then kind of the other guys are gonna have to get in where they fit in, sort of. And then when the Micah deal went how it went, then they signed Jake Ferguson, who really wasn't. I'm looking on the thing. I'm like, that ain't on the play sheet because he was one of the guys that, hey, if there's a guy that you want to let walk, that would might be a candidate. Even though I like Jake Ferguson, but what he brings, you could get that in the next tight end coming out of college. There's some great tight ends in college right now that you could get and they could come in and do what I mean, not knocking him at all. I love Jake Ferguson, but for him to get like $14 million a year, and I'm like, really? And I start thinking, it's oh yeah, that's Jalen Smith, um that's the offensive lineman that we just cut, that was here before that, got the test taker to piss for him or tried to get them to bribe him to do. Um, so yeah, so um, yeah, like a spiteful thing. Like I'm gonna pay you. Oh, you don't want the money? We'll just pay this guy and let you know, make you think like, hey, we running out of money. You better get this money while it's going. Um, so yeah, I can't remember his name. Me and names kind of go and come. But anyway, um, so they paid Ferguson and stuff, and it's like, okay, but yeah, you paid him and it's the same play. And then, of course, then when Micah's deal went south, they paid Bland, and Bland and Ferguson are great players, but it's like these are players that are like basically will take what you give them, right? What I mean is that none of them are like what you would call top of the food chain players. They're just, they're good players. Don't get me wrong. Love both of those guys. But them guys, but Bland ain't scoffing at a $23 million contract. He's a fifth round draft pick. Lyle Collins, that's his name. My mind runs funny. Lyle Collins. They signed Lyle Collins and Jalen Smith, who weren't like great players, so that they could mess with Zeke and Dak. Those kind of things. So they signed Ferguson and then Bland after. You know, because I also think it's a situation where let me get I ain't got my captions up, man. Ain't that crazy? I think it's a situation where, um, and I know Jerry reads, even though I don't think he reads the room enough. He read the room enough to know that, hey, man, the natives are getting restless, man. You better give them something here, or they'll start to lose, a little bit or something. Perfect, perfect. Um, so yeah, you know how like the fish are circling the bottom of the fish tank, and you sprinkle the food out up there, and they come to the boat, jumping, getting at that food or whatever. So that's what Jerry did. He gave us some breadcrumbs. We signed Bland. And then so like now here's the thing. Those two guys were guys that's just going to take random money because they're not guys that they're not going to command the market outside of Dallas. We love them, but Jake Ferguson walk, he getting 15 million, 14 million from somebody else. Deron Bland walk, he getting 23 million from another team. I don't know, maybe not. That's something we gotta look at. But then when they signed Tyler Smith, in my opinion, that's just my humble opinion as a Cowboy fan. I think Tyler Smith is maybe if not the second, maybe the second or third best tackle in the game. So what the Eagles signed that Smith kid for? What was it like 20, 22 million or something like that? Tyler Smith was going to be looking for around that kind of money. and look for the shenanigans that go on when we're trying to sign him because yeah, he want top of the line money because he's an all pro. He is the best at what he does. He shouldn't have to take a middle of the pack deal, not from a team that's worth 12, 13 billion dollars. Why am I giving them a break? And as fans, we got to stop thinking like that, man. Yeah, we got to stop thinking like that. That we, our players should take whatever Jerry gives them and just be happy they got a job. No, man, that's you wouldn't take $10 an hour from your job. When the company's capable of paying you 20, when they paid somebody else 20, and you're just as good as them or better, you're not taking 10. Why you want them taking 10? I just want our people to stop being Neanderthals, and it goes with that. But getting back to it, Deron Bland signs this 4 year, 92 million dollar ish deal, 23 million a year. We know Sauce Gardner makes 30. I want to say JC Horn. I think he's better than JC Horn. JC Horn's been hurt. I think the Carolina Panthers are kind of crazy for giving him that kind of money when he seems to be hurt all the time now. Patrick Surtain making 25 is crazy, and he's making 23 because I think Patrick Surtain might be the best corner in the game right now for the Broncos, who we were supposed to have drafted, but we got Micah instead, which I'm happy for. But anywho, so enough on that. We signed Bland and whatnot, and so that goes back to the thinking that because the Cowboys, and I know shout out to Landon Holyfield. He does a podcast called The Lando Show. He does sports under the behind the scenes, kind of thing. And he does a lot of research on stuff. So he did a video about 3 months ago that I liked, and I chimed in on it with him. And I wasn't doing videos then. I was trying to get my stuff back up and running. But he did a video talking about how other teams operate in terms of their spending. Now I know the front office at Dallas wants you to think that they're spending all this money and they're spending indiscriminately and they're just burning money and they ain't gonna be enough salary cap to go around. But when Lando does the thing, you can go to undercap.com or uh under the cap or sport track, any of those sites, and you can Google any team's salary cap room and any of that kind of stuff and various players' contracts, how much guaranteed money they got, how much that money affects the cap. That's all that kind of information that's out there now. So you can't just be a non-informed fan when there's information out there. That's what I try to tell people. There's information out there, you know. So when they tell you that, we can't pay everybody, like, dude, you can pay everybody you want to because other teams are doing it. So he did a breakdown of all the teams that are or what you would call playoff teams. In NFC, it was the Eagles, it was the 49ers, the Lions, and the Cowboys. I don't know if he used the Rams or not, but I would have put them in there. In the AFC, it was like the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. Okay, those are kind of like your stale, your frequent flyers or whatever in the AFC as it relates to being in the playoffs. And so when they did he broke it down like, okay, how many of these teams, how much dead money are they, which means you sign a guy and he don't pan out, you have to get rid of him. You're eating a lot of dead cap money, but dead cap money don't exactly stop you from doing stuff, you know. But and the Eagles lead the league in, like dead cap money. I think they're like 65, $68 million. Cowboys are like right at the bottom, like with like 10 million or something, 13 million or something like that, which is at the bottom, which means they hang on to their money. They're doing a good job with the thing, whatever. But then they did the breakdown. Well, how many $20 million players do you have? How many $15 million players do you have? How many $10 million players do you have? And how many under $5 million players do you have? And of course, the Eagles led the league. They had about like 9 players that made between 10 and $20 million, or between or over $10 million. They had like 12, 13 players that made more than that amount of money, and at least like 8 that made more than 20 or 20 or more, right? So, and he goes down, and I think the 49ers was next, and I think the Lions was down from there, and then the AFC, you looked at, I think the Chiefs was kind of down a little bit further down, but of course, they pay Pat, they pay Kelsey, they pay, I think Creed Humphrey, they center, And of course now they pay the Smith guy that left guard. And then of course they pay on defense. They pay Chris Jones. They pay Trent McDuffie and that sort of thing. And there's a couple others that they pay. I think they gave Nick Bolton some money this year too. And I'm not sure how much they gave him, but I'm sure it was a good contract. But the Cowboys only had three players that made $20 million or more. Dak, CD, and that was Diggs at the time. And then they had about two or three other players that was, between, 'cause I think Zach Martin was in there, and then one or two others, and I can't think of who they were, but it was like only like five players made, 10 million, between 10 million and $20 million, and from 10 million above, it was only like nine players, you know. So, and then when you did the math, so under 10 million, you had like 44 of the 53-man roster made $10 million or less. So that's 44 players that make $10 million or less. And then you start looking at how many players are on 1 year deals, and it's like almost half the roster. So it's and when you compare that to the other teams, you see why when we go and play those other teams, we come up short in the playoffs. Now, let me make something clear here. Just because you pay a guy more money don't make him a better player. All right. But most of those guys, players, are players they acquired. Like you can go to the Eagles roster and you'll look at Saquon Barkley. You'll look at Hassan Reddick. He's no longer on the team, but he was in that number when they did the thing. And you look at uh, uh, Darius Slay when he was on the team. He made a lot of money. C.J. Gardner Johnson made money. These were guys they went and got from the free agent market. And the reason I use those is because those were people that were proven. And Javon Hargrave, and Bryce Huff, when they paid 20 and didn't play him. And you start looking at teams like the 49ers, you're looking at Trent Williams, that's not one of their players. McCaffrey's not one of their players. They went out and got those players, right? And so now the Cowboys got to know a number of players that made $20 million now. Because now you got Dak, you got CD, okay, you got Diggs, you got Bland, you got Osa, okay, and then right above 14, 15, you got Ferguson, you know, and then at some point, hopefully, in the next few months, they'll have Tyler Smith. So you'll have like five players making 20. But that don't necessarily make you a better team. You just played your guys that was on your roster more money. See, that don't necessarily make you a better team. That just means you paying out more money. You paid your players that you drafted. And I know we love our guys, but other teams do other things to build their roster. So, okay, I'm happy for Deron Bland. I'm happy for Jake Ferguson. I'm happy for Osa Odigizua, because I think they were good players. I don't think Jake Ferguson is like, a top, I think he's a good tight end. I don't think he's top five. I don't think Osa Odigizua is a top five, defensive tackle. He may end up being. I love his work ethic. And I hope now we got Kenny Clark. Maybe they work together. Maybe they build something together. So we'll see. We'll see. I definitely want our players to be the best players and put on the best front so that the Cowboys have the best team on the planet. But the front office moves in a way that don't make that a thing that happens all the time. Sometimes it happens by happenstance. It happens by accident. Because those things are planned by these other teams. And I don't think if you're a front office guy like Jerry, you can't do all the other things you're doing and still run the team. Harry Roseman ain't going to premieres and cutting ribbons on openings of buildings and shopping centers and that on Wall Street, doing opening, where Bitcoin and some of these other things were opening that they got money in. He's not at those things. He's, those guys and Brett Veach and Les Snead for the Rams, all those guys, John Lynch, their 24-hour job is building teams, looking at the rosters, looking at who other teams are getting rid of and acquiring those players, saying how we can make our roster better. Well, the roster just got better. We got Kenny Clark and we got rid of Michael, so our running game should be better. Don't believe that bull crap. Trey Wingo was on DLL Sports today, and he knew, he's like, that's some bull. And if people that watch my channel, and I'm hoping to be more, want them to be smart. Don't just fall for anything they tell you and just believe everything they tell you. Um, So we've been having problems stopping the run since before Micah got there. We had problems in 18, 19, and 20 stopping the run. Micah gets here, it goes down to 16. But he's a pass rushing guy. So when we play teams that are run dominant guys, in order to beat them, we need to acquire guys. So maybe, I don't know, last year we don't draft Tyler Guyton. Maybe we draft a defensive tackle. I know we drafted one the year before. Maybe this year we don't draft Tyler Booker. Maybe we draft Kenneth Grant from Michigan, instead of Tyler Booker, even though I love Tyler Booker. Maybe we draft the Alfred Hopkins, I think that's his name, from Texas, instead of Ezraku in the second round. Another edge rusher. When we play in the Eagles, edge rusher ain't gonna be the thing, right? So anyway, second thing we're gonna talk about is that that injury that Micah had. He had an injury supposedly that was he um had a back injury, a back tightness, and that sort of thing. So most everybody thought, oh, he just capping because he not gotten his contract, so in order to not get paid, now I can't share my screen. My thing isn't working. I got to figure out how to do this or whatever. But anyway, comes out now, then I don't know why you even share this now, because if you had a divorce and the wife thought you was stepping around or whatever, and she didn't moved on to somebody else and got married, and you didn't actually got married to somebody else or whatever, and moved on with your relationship. Why do you need to go with a court order with the whoever she thought you was with, coming to the court saying, no, he wasn't with me that night. It don't matter now. So I don't know why uh, Micah's team will be carrying out the fake. 5 days after the trade was done. It don't matter now that he was faking the injury or not. But I know some of the content creators was like, they didn't like that Michael was faking the injury. Well, if it comes out he wasn't faking it, and he does have an L4, L5 thing going on, and he's got to have an epidural in there so he can play, so he can practice better. I don't see what because some people, when if it's, oh, well, he's lying, but then what's the payoff for lying? He's already got his money. He could just move on. Why would you lie about that? So a lot of times, oh, they just lying. Why? David Mulligetta was on First Take today, and I had the footage on that, and I probably could play that. But basically, he was saying, yeah, we was trying to get a deal couple last year, but we know CD and Dak was up, so we waited our turn. We've been ready to have a deal, and them telling us that they offered this. He said that was never a deal that they offered us. So everything that well, he's lying. Well, maybe it is, but is it outside the realm of possibility that Jerry might be lying? You know, I don't know. I don't know. But let's get to the main point of this video, because I'm about to be off of here because I got to go to work. Your boy got to go to work. You know, the Eagles. We got to play the Eagles Thursday. And we can say, oh, woe is me, we ain't got a shot, whatever. And I even said it on my TK video with did in the picks. I didn't think we would win. I thought we would play hard early. But I was listening to Skywalker Steel this morning, and he had a guy named what was that guy's name? And he was talking about um he was talking about he was talking about um, the different ways that the Cowboys can beat the Eagles and the challenges that they post. Um, and so those are the things we were looking at this morning. I think his name is I'm trying to find his name. Me and names. His name is Cody Alexander. He has a podcast. And so he was talking about, Vic Fangio runs like this 3D or cover three, and that kind of morphs as a cover six, which is double coverage on one side and a deep safety on the other side. And it's a shell, and it sort of like prevents you from going deep and whatnot, and it kind of and he fumble a lot of stuff underneath with players underneath, and it makes it where you got to make reads, and what they depend on is getting pressure up the middle, and it's like nobody's open under the middle because there's guys up underneath there. And the idea, is that how the Cowboys can beat them is if our offensive fronts, meaning our center and two guards, which is Tyler Booker, Cooper Beebe, and Tyler Smith, can create a vertical pocket for Dak. And what he went on to say that the tackles present a horizontal pocket, and they work together. And so if they could create a pocket where Dak has time to sift through, and there's going to be openings on the outside. And he said, now while the Eagles, when they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Eagles really don't have any downfield outside threats. Their threats is in the middle. They throw it to the back sometimes, and they throw it to Travis Kelce. Well, if you got those guys in the middle, that takes Kelce away, and then they really don't have playmakers on the outside. Well, as Cowboy fan, as the team the Cowboys are putting out there, we got outside guys. We got CD and we got George Pickens. You can't just put that shell out there and just run, random guys out there and like, well, he's not going to, because you can just throw it up there and Pickens going to get that thing, right? So that's an opportunity. Then the other thing he was saying is that, you got to be able to run the football some. And I don't mean like running for 150 yards, but if you can get 3 or 4 yards a carry, here or there to make it second down and 4, second down and 5, which means you have your whole arsenal of plays at your advantage. And see what Vic Fangio tries to make you do is kind of a bend that don't break, which we kind of do with Flus, is that we are hoping that there's a penalty somewhere on the drive. You got a false start, or you got a holding call or something. We'll get you behind the stick. Then Vic got you now because now you got to go beyond 4 or 5 yards to get the play. Then he can kind of like create pressure to make you have to make a quick read. And sometimes I'm end up in turnovers and fumbles and turnovers and stuff like that. So if we can, hit he think maybe the seam plays with us because we have so much ability on the outside with CD uh, and Pickens, that maybe the seams they can't play the same way that they played the Chiefs because they don't have nobody on their team like Pickens. They don't have nobody on their team like CD. So there's a certain way you got to play those guys so they don't get 8 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. But in order to do that, you open up some things in the seams and in the middle. It's just a matter of whether the inside can hold the pressure from the inside. And that's Jordan Davis, and that's Jalen Phillips. If you can keep them guys at bay long enough where Dak can kind of see, we can eat on them, and then we can cross them up and get some runs in there, and not get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. I think we can move the ball on them, and then make them have to make some adjustments. Offensively, look, man, the Eagles got an offense that's hard to deal with because they run the ball so well. But I like Kenny Clark, and I think him and Osa, and then maybe Mike Mozzie. Mozzie now gets an opportunity to get mentored. That's one of my things too. Can you allow Mozzie to be mentored and not ask him to lead the parade? Because I don't know if he ever got enough training and professionalism how to deal with his body. The dude been 340, 285, 320. He don't even know how to use his body. Maybe having a Kenny Clark, a consummate professional, a dog that can show him how to do that. Maybe having him for a season. We only had Hankins for a season. Maybe that'll help him. Maybe Mozzie being a rotational defensive tackle will help him in his development. Maybe we get some pressure. Maybe we force them into, because the way you got to stop the Eagles is you got to, because we all about pass rush, because we got a ton of pass rushers. Now, luckily, we got enough guys to take over for Micah with him being gone, with Ezra Raku and Dante Fowler, Houston, James Houston, Marshawn Nealon a little bit, but he also plays the run very well. You got those guys and Sam Williams. We got some dudes, right? But the thing about it is, if we can get just enough push in the middle to stop them on them first down runs, because what the Eagles like to do is like to get like 6 or 7 yards on first down, and then they kind of got you. Because if it's third down and 2, they can always tush push you. So you got to stop them on first and second down. to force them into a 3rd and long. All right. And then something that I want to say, I don't know if it was Skywalker still said, the thing that kills us with the Eagles, they'll be 3rd and 9, and they'll run them 4 verticals, and then Jalen will just take off and run with it and get the first down. You got to be leery of that, man. But anyway, man, I'm feeling better and better about our approach. And I like the fact that Schottenheimer's not really showing anything. He's just kind of playing his cards the way he's playing them. And we're just going to see how it goes. And I feel like maybe, and when I come on tomorrow, when we talk and we're ready to close this video, so please like, comment, and subscribe. I think the Cowboys can win this game now. That's just after studying it, because I'm liking how they're not really telling. The big thing we got going for us is Big Fangio, and I can't think Petula. I think that's what the offensive coordinator for the Eagles is. Don't know what we're going to run, because we ran vanilla stuff in training camp, vanilla stuff in preseason. Nobody knows what we're going to do. And I think that's an advantage, not knowing what we're doing, because Jerry ain't out saying, well, I think such and such is going to start. Because Diggs is saying, hey, I'm 75%. Does he play? I don't know. Maybe he gets some snaps. I wouldn't start him, but I think he could play, 30 snaps, 20 snaps to get him ramped up. But anyway, man, I'm feeling much better about that, man. This Eagle week, so F them Eagles. Hey, man, I ain't, I don't nothing like about the Eagles, man. So F them Eagles and everything. And that when I hear the Eagles, this is what I think about, man. This is what I hear the Eagles. That's what I feel like when I hear the Eagles. So anyway, F them Eagles. We got a chance to beat them Eagles, man. So even with the ineptness of our front office, the incompetence of our front office, I think our players can beat the Eagles if we play our sound fundamentals and play and not get ahead of ourselves. And don't make any mistakes early. I think, if the game's close late, I like our chances, man. Anyway, man, that's all I got, man, from the desk of Uncle Fred. Please like, please comment, please subscribe to the Uncle Fred Sports Experience, for I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Catch you guys on the next video.